With the Guardians of the Galaxy coming out, that comes to an end. Phase 4 of the MCU. So it's time to stop and rank all 17 projects of the MCU Phase 4. This includes movies, TV shows, and special presentations. My name is Max Dinner. We're going to a brand new preview here in Max Talks Movies. We're doing a ranking of MCU Phase 4. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, ring the bell. I have done separate reviews of each of these projects, except 2 specials of Werewolf by Night and holiday specials. So all the TV shows and movies I have done reviews of. Even my full breakdowns of episodes and full movies, you can get those on the channel as well by clicking that subscribe button, seeing all my other videos. Comment down below, what is your ranking of the Phase 4 of the MCU? If you just want to do movies, if you just want to do TV shows, you want to do everything involved, let me know your ones, and let's have a fun discussion about our rankings in the comment section. And please like the video, the thumbs up button. Without further ado, this is gonna be a long ranking, so let's get into 17 projects. I said I am also not including I Am Groot, the shorts. I don't really feel comfortable fitting that in this list, but I had a really good time with I Am Groot. But I'm just not going to put this on this ranking. So starting at number 17 is She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. I'm not the person who hates this show or for any of those type of hateful, disgusting reasons that a lot of people hate this show for. I think this is one of the best castings that the MCU's had with Tatiana Maslany as Jennifer Walters. But for me, the show just didn't really click at all. It was supposed to be a 30-minute kind of comedy law show, and for me, I was just not laughing for the majority of the episodes. The best part of the show became the inclusion of Daredevil in the last 2 episodes of the series. And while I found the finale with the fourth wall breaking to be a lot of fun, it did undercut the entire show's plot points until that point. So I just didn't feel any really emotional connection. I wasn't really laughing as much as I wanted to. So for me, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law is at number 17. Number 16 is Miss Marvel. Again, this is one of the best castings of the MCU with Iman Vellani, and I found this to be actually a lot more enjoyable than She-Hulk. I had a fun time watching Kamala Khan in the MCU. The first 2 episodes I thought were fantastic and great ways to kick off the show, but then the show kind of goes all over the place. Try to do Pakistani history, the jinn, the villains, and then it kind of wraps up with the last episode back at the high school where we haven't been since episode 2. So for me, overall, Miss Marvel was a fun show led by a really great charismatic lead actress in Iman Vellani, but the whole show just didn't come all the way together from a structure point of view. But I can't wait to see Kamala Khan in the Marvels next year. In number 15 is the first movie on this list, and that is Eternals. Now, I gave this, again, all the movies, actually in Phase 4, I gave a positive rating to, which I think will shock a lot of people. Eternals for me is one I have never gone back to rewatch. I've seen it one time in theaters, and I just sometimes when I'm scrolling through Disney Plus, I'm like, maybe Eternals, and then I bow to, and I'm like, maybe not. I love this all-star cast and this very different set of characters in the MCU. It just feels so totally different. But my biggest problem with this film is that it is way too long. It's really drawn out, and it is quite slow. I still find the film to be philosophically really interesting. The characters are great. The performances are very interesting. I think this is the biggest example of the 4th phase of the MCU of a movie that probably should have been a TV show. But still, I give a positive rating on this film. My other big question is that what is the future of these characters? We just haven't seen any inkling of these characters being in the MCU moving forward, except for Kingo movie posters popping up in MCU projects. Other than that, there just hasn't been a great sense of direction for this part of the MCU moving forward. At number 14 is the one I am the most disappointed with, and the more I think about, the worse I think it is, and that is Thor, Love and Thunder. This is a movie that out of the theaters, I thought I had a great time, really enjoyed it, and was very positive on this movie. I gave it a 3.5, I think, out of 5 on my original, and I'm now dropping to a 3, and now I'm closing in on 2.5 out of 5 for Thor, Love and Thunder. still in the theater and still thinking about the movie, it's an absolute blast from start to finish. I was never bored with Thor: Love and Thunder, and the addition of Christian Bale into the MCU was a great idea, and he gave it his all in this movie. But for me, the more I kept thinking about Gore being a god butcher and he's not doing any god butchering in the movie, the Jane Foster element of the movie, I'm just not a huge fan of this character in the Thor franchise. And then them kind of wasting Valkyrie, who's such an important character, just kind of pushing her to the sidelines for big portions of the movie. The jokes were funny, but I found this to be very similar to how I felt about Guardians 1 to Guardians 2 and Thor Ragnarok to this film. This film, very similar to Guardians Volume 2, just wants to do jokes, jokes, jokes. And I think this film, even more so than Guardians Volume 2, is trying to, even though I like this movie better than Volume 2, this movie is trying to tackle a lot of serious stuff, including Jane having cancer, Gore losing his child, and it just all does not blend together. One of the messiest Taika Waititi films to date. At number 13 is movie in the movie that kicked off Phase 4 of the MCU, which was Black Widow. I had more fun, it seems like, than most people had. This is the first MCU movie I've seen in the movie theater since Spider-Man Far From Home. So I definitely had a lot of emotions going into this screening of Black Widow. But it brought us one of my favorite characters of the entire MCU in Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova. What a fun character that I just, every time she's mentioned or is in a scene, especially as we'll get to Hawkeye, she is absolutely fantastic. And Yelena, I'm so excited for her to lead that Thunderbolts team. I'm very, very excited for her future. Also, having David Harbour as Red Guardian was really great. And it's always great to see Scarlett Johansson in the role of Black Widow. And also, I found some of the action scenes to be quite entertaining the first two acts of the movie. And the banter that carries the film is great between Johansson and Pugh. But what comes out of this is that the villains are really underwhelming and not that interesting whatsoever, disappointing as well to the villains of this movie. And then the third act becomes like a cartoon with Black Widow flying around in the sky. It just isn't very realistic, and the CGI was not very good. But Black Widow I had fun with more than most people. At number 12 is a show that I think the most disappointed show on my list, and that is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I love these two characters. I love everything the actors brought to these characters in the entire MCU. Obviously, Sam becoming Captain America is a very big deal. I am shocked they did that through a TV show, but still, Anthony Mackie was fantastic, and I'm just such a big Bucky fan, one of my favorite characters in the MCU. With Sebastian Stan, both of them have great chemistry. The action is John Walker's inclusion into this series, played by Wyatt Russell, was very interesting. And the three of them, and also the addition of Zemo into the phrase, was found very compelling in his first couple episodes. But overall, I just didn't love the structure. There were elements, including talking about the race with Isaiah's character, and how the super soldier serum and all those things connecting to our history and MCU history kind of coming one and the same. Love that. The Isaiah Bradley storyline is really touching. But other than that, I just felt like the villains were really underwhelming, and you can clearly tell with the pandemic hurt this project more than any other project in the MCU, especially with the villains. I didn't really love the Sharon Carter twist of it all. And when you really think about the show, the Zemo twist just was Zemo being in the show. He just didn't really need to be there, especially if they're not going to use him again moving forward. So it's a show that I liked, but this show could have been one of the better things in Phase 4 of the MCU. Number 11 is Hawkeye. This is one of the most fun times I've had in the MCU in Phase 4 with Hawkeye. One of the biggest Haley Steinfeld fans, and she is perfect casting as Kate Bishop. And again, the addition of Yelena Belova kind of saves the last two episodes of this series. Also, Vera Farmiga as her mom was very interesting. Seeing Hawkeye following Endgame, and he was in the Avengers, but he's not seen as that type of Tony Stark, Captain America. What is his relationship like at home following Avengers Endgame? And I found that all to be very compelling in the show. And obviously adding Yelena and having Florence Pugh and Haley Steinfeld have scenes together and action scenes together was tons of fun. But still, it doesn't feel as consequential as a lot of the other shows do. I thought the inclusion of Echo just wasn't that interesting. I'm excited for her show, but again, I felt like they her character was just to be there to set up a different thing, not to have her as a focal point in Hawkeye, which then adds into Kingpin, who I love Vincent D'Onofrio, but this was not the Kingpin from the Daredevil show. And hopefully they fix that when D'Onofrio returns in both Echo and in the Daredevil series coming to Disney Plus in 2024. So there's things a lot more to like that I didn't like, but just not as great as a lot of things on the top of this list. Now we're heading into the top 10 with Werewolf by Night. What a fun little 45 minutes spent on Disney Plus from director Michael Giacchino's the longtime composer. This was a really fun and just fresh take on something in the MCU. It was one of the times in the MCU in a while where you weren't thinking, oh, we need to connect this to the broader MCU. You just wanted to watch a fun 40 to 45 minutes on Disney Plus during Halloween. This was the perfect thing. The black and white aesthetic, the old school just aesthetic to the film with the practical effects, the most vicious killings that we've seen in the MCU today in Werewolf by Night. And I just love Gael Garcia Bernal's performance in this. My biggest flaw is that I love the setup so much more than what we got as the payoff of the action scene, especially towards the last 10 minutes of the movie. I just didn't think the special stuck the landing, because the first 20 minutes was fantastic. I thought the last half of it was pretty okay to good. But overall, what a fun time with Disney Plus during Halloween. Number 9 is let me find it. It is, sorry, 2 seconds here. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I really like this movie. I know a lot of people do not, and a lot of people who don't like the movie really don't like it for Wanda, and I really like this movie because of Wanda. I do feel like this movie should have probably been a more Wanda-led film than a Doctor Strange movie with Wanda as the villain. Now, I'm on the side of Wanda was great in this movie, the best part of this movie, and that becoming a villain made sense. At the end of WandaVision, she kidnapped all those people in Westview. Of course she's the villain. She didn't really care that she kidnapped all those innocent human beings. Of course she becomes a villain following that show. And a lot of people just think that's a stereotypical of women. I'm not getting into that. The story for me fit from WandaVision into this movie. And I had a really fun time. I did think the cameos that were thrown in there with the Illuminati were really cheap, and those are the type of cameos that are fan service that just I didn't really like. It was cool to see at first for the cheers in a movie theater, but that's all they were for to get cheers in the movie theater. But I love Sam Raimi and putting a lot of Sam Raimi horror-isms into this movie. It just made it feel like a more unique film, a much better film for me than the original Doctor Strange. So I had a blast at this movie from start to finish, and I do love both Cumberbatch and Olsen in their respective roles. Number 8 on this list is What If, the only animated show that the MCU, only animated thing that the MCU has done. And I had a blast with What If. I guess the main issue with the show is that not every episode was nearly as great as the other. Some forgettable episodes, but the episodes with Captain Carter and the Doctor Strange episode 4 is one of the fourth episode, which is the Doctor Strange episode, is one of the best MCU TV episodes of all time. Bringing back a lot of these voice actors who play these characters in live action was a great idea. And then once you get to the Guardians of the Multiverse last episode, it was just tons of fun seeing what ifs and not having to think if this has implications for the MCU, just to watch the characters that you love in live action being completely different situations in animated form. And obviously, it was the last time we got to hear Chadwick Boseman ever in a performance. So definitely endearing. But I love What If, and I cannot wait for season 2 of What If. To number 7, and that is where we get to the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. This was a lot better than I expected. Obviously, with Moore's Holiday Specials, they're just comedies, supposed to be forgettable. This special, adds also a lot of lore moving forward for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Of course, adding Cosmo, voiced by Maria Bakalova, to the mix. The fact that the Guardians bought Nowhere from the Collector, just little things like that. And the big thing, obviously, is Peter Quill and Mantis being siblings, because Mantis is also a daughter of Ego. And I found that scene was one of the most touching aspects, honestly, of the entire phase of this phase, with Mantis and Quill hugging each other, talk about this Christmas thing. And then, the greatest gift that he got was that Mantis was his sister. I thought that was really touching. The jokes were a lot of good. I did feel like when they were on Nowhere, it felt like a movie. And when they went to the US, it kind of felt like Disney Channel, especially when they went to the Walk of Fame. in Hollywood. It felt very Disney Channel to me. So I think the production design, obviously for both, just felt too drastically different. For me, not all the jokes landed, but this was a really fun, cute holiday special to wrap up Phase 4. Let's move to number 6, and that is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Another great, really good movie, solid movie for the MCU, with one of the best villains of the MCU, with the actual Mandarin played by Tony Leung, who is by far away the best part of this film. He's really fantastic, both as a father, as a villain, as a husband. He has so many different complexities to his character, and he is the best part of this movie. Of course, Simu Liu as Shang-Chi is also really great. Awkwafina is really good in this movie. Michelle Yeoh is great in the movie. And the hand-to-hand, like, kung fu action scenes in the first 2 acts of this movie are awesome. They are fantastic, something that the MCU has not brought to the table so far. My issue with the film is really the 3rd act being a CGI fest, especially when these 2 characters fight. It's a bit of it feels like a video game, because the first 2 acts were such hand-to-hand combat dependent, and then it went all in on the CGI and the special effects for the 3rd act. So to make it like an MCU movie, so that's my big holdback of this movie, not being in the top 5 for Phase 4. At number 5 is Loki. I love Loki. I love everything here on my top 5 up. These are the only things I love here in Phase 4. I thought Loki was fantastic from start to finish. Seeing Tom Hiddleston in a different version kind of Loki, the variant version from Endgame, I loved. Owen Wilson's one of the best castings of the MCU with Mobius, and Hiddleston and Wilson had great chemistry together, on-screen chemistry together. You also had Sophie DiMartino, who was really good. But obviously for me, I did love the finale of this season. Getting to see Jonathan Majors play a variant of Kang just keeps getting me more pumped to see him more in the MCU, because I thought this was a great introduction. I didn't think it was too talking. If it was, I was just in awe of Jonathan Majors' performance in the finale episode. There was one episode that was a complete filler episode where Sylvie and Loki start somewhere and then they end up in the same place where they started, and that is really holding it back for me from being in the top 4. But still, I love this show from start to finish. Great inclusion here to the MCU, and again, I can't wait for season 2 of this show. At number 4 is a show that I feel like I'm in the minority now, and that is Moon Knight. I loved Moon Knight from start to finish. I think this is easily one of, if not the strongest performance in the entire MCU, with Oscar Isaac playing multiple people with the DID, and making Mark Spector just 2 different people. His performances, he made 2 identities feel like 2 completely different people, and that is really hard to do as an actor. And Oscar Isaac as Stephen Grant and Mark Spector just brought that to the table. He is absolutely fantastic in the show. The look of Moon Knight was really cool. Ethan Hawke as Arthur Harrow was a nice addition as well. Going to Egypt, going somewhere we've never been to the MCU, was really nice to do. But I love the show. The comedy worked, the action kind of worked. I know there's obviously, I can't wait for more Moon Knight, but I love that this is more of a character-focused journey. I thought episode 5 was absolutely jaw-droppingly fantastic, learning more about Mark Spector, then turning into Stephen Grant, the back and forth between the 2 of those characters, and Oscar Isaac, just one of the best performances in the MCU. Movie number 3 is the most recent movie that came out, and sorry I'm taking long to get to. That is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I love this movie. I think it's better than the first film. Going through Shuri's journey in this movie is really special. It's a very special character arc, obviously because of the true life and the character passing of Chadwick Boseman, T'Challa. Angela Bassett gives an Oscar award nominated performance, I believe, in this film. Namor of Tenoch Huerta is a great addition to the MCU, and came out in the Namor and Shuri dynamic was something I was not expecting to really enjoy in this movie, and I did. The action scenes were great. It was such a grand movie. Ryan Coogler does a great job shooting this film as well. The action scenes are tons of fun, especially when you get with the Sea People and the people of Talokan fighting against the people of Wakanda. And just one of the most unique movie experiences in the theater I've ever had. So Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I've said a lot about this movie already, in spoiler and non-spoiler, so that's my thoughts on this movie. Number 2 for me is the best show of the MCU has ever done so far, and that is WandaVision. Now, I know some people are really not happy with the finale. I thought the finale was okay, but for me, the whole show was my favorite experience watching anything in the MCU. Being the predictability factor of the show on a week-to-week basis is why this show was so special, and people wanted week-to-week viewing to stay in TV. Obviously, Marvel really hasn't come through with that since WandaVision, but the amount of theories and discussions from people week to week at the show, the MCU has never seen anything like that, those discussions that people were having with WandaVision on a week-to-week basis. Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany are fantastic in these roles. Their chemistry was really fantastic. Catherine Hahn's one of the best villains in the MCU. And she's getting her own show, which I can't wait for, with Agatha, House of Harkness. The sitcom aspect of it, the twists, the turns are really interesting. Yes, the finale goes for a bit too much of an MCU dependent, having CGI action scenes, but for overall, the emotion was still there. And I just think that's one of the most fun experiences I've had watching anything in the MCU ever. But coming in first place is Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. This film gave me every single thing I wanted with this movie, bringing back, obviously, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, but also the villains, and making this still feel like a Peter Parker, Tom Holland-led story as he becomes the boy into Spider-Man in this movie. I thought it's the most beautiful Spider-Man character arc we've ever gotten in a movie so far. The villains, obviously, Willem Dafoe is so fantastic in this movie. It's fun from start to finish. It's my favorite movie theater experience I've ever had, walking in a theater and everyone cheering for the same moments and seeing Daredevil and everyone clapping, and it really feeling like a sporting event, sometimes even more so than a movie event. So Spider-Man No Way Home, I love this movie. I have rewatched it multiple times, and I will continue to rewatch it because this is my favorite character, and this is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Spider-Man movies. So that's my ranking of Phase 4 of the MCU. Phase 5 will be kicking off with Ant-Man Quantumania, which I'll be reviewing, obviously. But thanks for such a whole great year of me breaking down episode by episode reviews of TV shows and movies. Thank you so much for joining me on this ranking of Phase 4. Coming out tomorrow will be my overall November 2022 ranking. And we have tons of videos coming out in the month of December, so please join us. I'll see you guys then.